everybody, and welcome to Lies. Hi, this is Soraya, whom you probably already know. She wrote this series of episodes on Khosrau, and I am Dan. Dan Floyd, who you probably haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Hello.
This is the face behind the voice. Those of you who have watched Side Quest have gotten used to the fact that he has a different voice, but now you have to get used to the fact that his face is not a cartoon.
But yes, welcome to Lies, wherein we talk about all the stuff we might have missed in a series, anything that we might have gotten wrong, and we just flesh out what we already had in the episodes, just with information that was neat, but that we just did not have time for. And I guess we should start with the things that we got wrong. So, other than me probably mispronouncing some words, because that's my thing, what did we get wrong?
You're pretty good on names, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a shocker.
I mean, we all struggle with the KH Khosrau, but I'm not even going to try and do that today.
I didn't even know it's what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, I didn't try to ask you for it.
Thank you.
There were no flags in this series,
Hey.
So we're good to go on that front. And Lil and I spent a lot of time on maps, so I think they're about as accurate as a pair of non-cartographers can get them. So we're pretty good there. The errors that came up most commonly were actually people thinking that we had made anachronistic mistakes that we did not make. Right?
So we were right.
We were right and you were wrong. A bunch of people, for example, noticed we write the name of Iran in a foreign script in several episodes, and they were saying that's Arabic, and they didn't use Arabic script in Persia at the time. It wasn't Arabic.
So what was it, though?
It was Pahlavi, which is
okay.
the script that they used in Iran at that time, in Khosrau's time. So we got that one right.
We did a thing right. So some of the other comments I saw were pointing out that that we were incorrect to call it Iran when it should have been called Persia at that time, until, or at least until 1935 or something. Mm-hmm. Were they correct in that case, or no?
Nope.
Y'all were wrong.
Y'all were wrong.
You lied to me.
The country has always been called Iran or Aryan. It was the Greeks who called it Persia.
Oh, okay.
Because their first contact was with the province of Pars, hence Persia. And you would think that the Greeks of all people would understand this because the Greeks called themselves Hellenes and we're the ones who call them Greek, but you know. So the Iranian embassy requested that the name Iran be made the official name of the country in 1935, but it was already the name of the country that was used in the country. And it was used in Khosrau's time. Sasanian rulers called themselves Shahanshah Iran, which is the king of the Aryan people. And that was the name he knew his own country by.
Okay.
So we called it Iran, and we also started calling Justinian's country Rome instead of Byzantium, because I figured that was only fair. If Iran got their name, then Rome got their own name as well.
That seems reasonable, yeah. I'm so not used to us getting most everything right and not having some flag wrong.
I'm sure we got something wrong, but there is a Persian tradition where if you're weaving a tapestry, you make at least one small error because only God does everything perfectly.
Right.
So all of our tiny errors were totally intentional.
They were on purpose.
Mm-hmm. In the grand Persian tradition.
So why did the Hephthalites not just conquer Iran when they had the opportunity to do it?
I mean, they tried.
Oh, okay. So they did try and just failed.
They did try. They failed. Sukra stopped them.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, and also conquering a country is not very easy.
Fair.
Even if their wildest dreams had come true and the monarchy had toppled, there were still at the time really strong allegiances between people and their local lords, right?
Okay.
So it's not so much you sweep in and take over the whole country as you have to take over all of these piecemeal bits, which will resist individually. Plus, the empire had only been in decline for one reign. Kavad's dad kind of screwed it up.
So it's still doing pretty good.
But they were doing pretty good on the whole.
All right. Not an easy empire to topple then.
Right. But then you fast forward almost a century after Khosrau, and the Arabs did conquer Iran. So what's the difference there? The difference is one, Khosrau's son screwed up. He alienated their Arabic allies to the south, which first of all had always been their buffer from the south. And second of all, he alienated their Arab allies, and then the Arabs came to invade, and they didn't have any allies among the Arab people to fight back for them, right?
That seems like a mistake.
It was a mistake. It was poorly thought through. Plus, in this point, the empire had been in decline for nearly a century. The rulers that followed Khosrau weren't nearly as strong as he was. And I read one really interesting scholar, Parvana Purshariati, who makes the argument that Khosrau actually opened the vulnerability because he destroyed the ties that people had with like their area and their local lord. Remember, he was doing all of these revisions to make everything more bureaucratic and to make the bureaucracy answer to him, the emperor.
I see.
The Shah, excuse me. And so like when the Arabs came in, they were able to subvert all of that bureaucracy and make that bureaucracy work for them. And they did, and it worked. So that's why it worked for them, but didn't work for the Hephthalites.
All right, so what do we know about Mazdak?
Very little.
He seemed very interesting.
He's extremely interesting and possibly fictional.
Oh. All right.
Yeah.
Wait. So
I personally do believe that there's enough evidence to say that he's real, but there's been a lot of scholarly arguments that suggest that maybe he wasn't, or that maybe he existed, but he was made the scapegoat for a lot of things that were, not really his fault, but it kind of enlarges the legend and it gives Kavad an easy out.
I see.
Right?
Okay.
But one of the reasons that people wonder, is he actually real, is we have these contemporary Christian sources that have survived, and a lot of them talk about Kavad having these unpopular sort of proto-communist views, but none of them mention Mazdak by name.
Interesting. Okay.
Right. So Mazdak doesn't come up by name until you get to the Iranian and Arabic sources, and the ones that we have that survived were written later. So they attest to his existence, but their attestations are a little bit wobbly, right? Like, a lot of them disagree about when exactly he died. Some say that Khosrau killed him while his father was alive, on his father's orders. Others say what we went with in the series, which is that Khosrau had to kill him upon ascending to the throne in order to secure his power.
Sure.
And if anyone is interested in reading more about that, Patricia Crone has written a fantastic essay that talks about Mazdak and talks about a lot of the theories about what happened with him. I don't necessarily agree with her conclusion, but I do think that it's like 20 pages. It's a great summary of the various theories about Mazdak, and it definitely presents an interesting point of view.
Neat. That's a much more tangly web of like stray points of data we have on him than I expected.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's definitely the foggiest part of what is already a very foggy history.
That's interesting. So the Mazdak thing is a very foggy, tangly bit of history. Then what are some of the other, like, are there other foggy points similar to Mazdak in the story that we told?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I'm learning.
One of the major points of contention is how old was Kavad. We know exactly when he died. We don't know exactly when he was born. And the range of difference is 20 years.
Whoa, okay.
Right? So some people think that he died at the age of 80, and other people say that he died at the age of 60. And if he died at the age of 80, that would make him about 30 at the time that this whole thing went down with his dad and him getting captured and made captive to the Hephthalites.
That's interesting. Like that a prince, the son of a shah, like that the date of their birth could be in such heavy dispute.
Right?
Yeah.
And especially the heir apparent, but we don't know because we don't have that much data that survived. The reason that I went with the age of 60 for his full life was that one, there's a contemporary account by our own old friend Procopius, Justinian's historian.
He gets around.
Right, which refers to him by the younger age, and that's a contemporary account, so that's part of it.
Okay.
And the other thing is that there were coins minted when he first ascended the throne that show him with like whiskers, not a full beard. And that's the way that they have traditionally presented boy kings.
I see.
So to me, that was the real convincing piece of evidence that his coinage showed him young.
I've been working on like diving into Dark Souls lore for a good long while now, so like it's been interesting just seeing just actual history and like trying to delve into the like actual historians trying to delve into actual facts and using tiny little bits and pieces of clues to form theories with, and me just feeling like this feels like a shortcoming on the writer's part. They're not giving us enough points, data points here.
What do you think we have arguments about? If everything was clear,
That's fair.
We would all be out of historical jobs and just be like, this is what happened. There's also some questions about Khosrau's son, Anushirawan, who in the end of the series we talk about he dies in battle. This is what the Arab and the Iranian sources say, that he died in battle and then he was given a Christian burial, which is burial underground as opposed to the sky burial that was practiced in Zoroastrianism, and that was a big deal, right?
Okay.
But contemporary account by our own Procopius that I was talking about before says that Anushirawan was actually captured and that Khosrau had his eyelids mutilated so that he could live, but because the Iranian tradition was you can't inherit the throne unless you are perfect of form, he could never inherit.
I see, okay.
So we don't know for sure. We know that he led a rebellion, we know when he led a rebellion, we know some details about even who financed the rebellion. We don't know if he died.
That's... I mean, presumably he did at some point.
Eventually, probably, unless he's like hanging with Elvis or something, you know?
Yep, just Anushirawan and Elvis just somewhere hanging, having a margarita.
Fan art, please?
I do have to know, what is a sky burial?
It is when the corpse is left out on a dedicated platform for birds to eat the flesh, and that's pretty much it.
That's kind of cool.
Buried underground. Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. But yeah, I think as I was, working on this episode and what we're going to talk about on this episode, I came across this quote from someone on Twitter that I think perfectly encapsulates what we're talking about as far as, sometimes history says different things.
Okay.
And this quote is from @Oriwa on Twitter. And they said, history is not the study of certifiable facts, but the study of narratives and consensus.
That feels right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course there's arguments, right? If you have kids, ask your two kids what they were fighting about 5 minutes ago and they can't agree. Now we're talking about asking generals from 500 years ago what they were fighting about. Of course they can't agree.
That makes perfect sense, actually.
Yeah.
That's a good quote.
Thank you, Ariwa.
So I can't be the only person who is desperate to know what ultimately happened to Khosrau's library.
I'm glad you asked, because I love talking about Khosrau's library.
Okay.
So we referenced earlier the Muslim conquest of Iran, right? So when Muslims took over Iran, one of the things that people admired and recognized the value in really quickly was this university at Gondishapur. So eventually, the books from it, a lot of them were brought to Baghdad, and they were translated into Arabic, primarily during the reign of Harun al-Rashid, whom I'd love to do a series about one day.
All right.
They helped contribute to a golden age of learning in Islamic world.
Okay.
And through that, they traveled to Spain because there was a Muslim caliph in Spain at the time. And that Muslim caliph had Spanish Christians and Spanish Jews in his court, and the Spanish Christians and Jews translated these books and helped spread them back to Europe, which helped launch the Renaissance.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
A happy ending.
It is kind of a happy ending. We did still lose a lot.
Oh.
Yeah.
How? What happened?
Not everything gets brought over, not everything gets translated.
That makes sense.
One of the biggest things that we lost was the Shaddai Namag, which is this massive history that Khosrau had compiled that we talked about.
Right. The Zoroastrian one, right? Or
that's the Avesta.
Oh, that's right.
The Shaddai Namag, we didn't name it because I didn't want to ask you to have to try and do that.
You're so considerate, thank you.
I know, you're welcome. So it was a great history of Iran, right? From ancient days to Khosrau's time, and it was supposed to be updated and kept, accurate. We lost it. And if we had kept it, we would probably know when Kavad was born, and we would probably know if Anushirawan died or not, but we lost it, so we don't.
Aww.
But there is something of an heir to the university, because there is now a University of Gondishapur.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, in Iran, which was built in 1955 and named after the old library during the Sasanian Empire.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is it also large and impressive, or is it just...
It's tiny.
Okay, well...
But it's done some good things.
Can't win them all.
Yeah.
So in the Justinian series, because there's clearly some overlap between the Justinian and Khosrau series, in Justinian series, when we got to the point where Khosrau is just being a delightful troll, from that perspective, we kind of framed Khosrau as the aggressor, or just the instigator, if nothing else. In this one, we've kind of flipped it. In this one, Justinian is more the instigator and the troublemaker and the reason that Khosrau sees the need to go and just start causing trouble everywhere. Which do you think is closer to the truth?
I think that they're both true, and it's a matter of perspective.
All right.
I mean, our whole theme today has been that it's all about, like, there are different perspectives of history, and you have to understand that, right?
Yeah.
From Justinian's perspective, the things that he was doing that were ticking Khosrau off, like meddling with the Arab allies in the south, from Justinian's perspective, that's him reinforcing a weakness that he's recognized in his own empire. You know, Khosrau and Iran had always had these really strong Arabic allies to their south. And so, you know, just prior to this, Justinian had actually uplifted another Arabic tribe to make it declare this person a king, right?
Okay.
He offered it to Khosrau's ally to try and get him to do it. But since Khosrau's ally said no, he went and started his own, and then the two of them start fighting. And the two of them can't agree on who started it. So, right, like from Justinian's perspective, I'm sure he thought Khosrau's ally started it. Probably thought it was at Khosrau's instigation. From Khosrau's perspective, he thought that Justinian started it, right? So it's just perspective. And even, you know, like one of the big themes throughout the series was Dara, this city of Dara that was built on the border. That was such a hotly contested thing. And Rome built it in violation of a treaty saying that they wouldn't fortify things on that border. But that treaty was made before Iran took the city of Nisibis, which is used to be Rome's border city. It was a big border city that Rome controlled, and Iran had its own border cities on the other side, and those three cities kind of struck a balance.
Okay.
But Iran took Nisibis, so now Rome didn't have a big border city. So they start panicking and feel like they need something there, so they built Dara, right?
It's a tiny little building Cold War they had going on their border.
Yes, they really did.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's very much perspective, and it would be, I think, fascinating to see an alternate history, ping alternate history hub, if you're watching again.
I know you are.
I hope so.
I don't know if he is.
No. But, well, he will be once fans start getting in his Twitter about this. There you go. It would be interesting to see an alternate history about what would have happened if Justin had in fact adopted Khosrau, and Khosrau and Justinian had become adoptive brothers. Would they have behaved differently?
Oh man, that would be a very fun alternate history story.
Right, especially considering how similar they were as people and what they did for their empires. If you can imagine the two of them working together as opposed to being at war all the time, probably a very different outcome.
Can someone write up like a fan fiction of those two starting a detective agency?
Yes, please. Fan fiction of that, and fan art of Anushirawan and Elvis.
So we absolutely cannot wrap this up. Cannot.
Oh dear.
Until we have found some sort of Walpole connection. We are obligated by law.
Yes. Law was passed in the city of Seattle requiring Walpoles.
Yes. So how can we connect Walpole to this? Because I'm sure he did something.
Oh, well, yes, we got it. And we owe thanks to patron David Malcolm, who suggested this on Patreon.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, David Malcolm. And the suggestion that David sent in was Khosrau's history collection, the Shahdai Namag, was used to create the Shahnameh, which is the Iranian national epic. And one of the stories in the Shahnameh was the basis for a fairy tale called The Three Princes of Serendip.
Okay.
And Serendip being the word for Sri Lanka.
Oh, that's a fun word.
Yes. Well, it's about to get even more fun.
Ooh.
So the story is all about these princes who keep making discoveries by lucky accident. They're not trying, but it just happens. And the story was told to Horace Walpole, son of Robert Walpole, who, on the basis of this, coined the word serendipity.
Really?
Yeah.
That's where the word serendipity came from.
That's where it comes from. Walpole's gave us serendipity.
Wow.
Which is the most Walpolean thing.
It is. I never would have guessed that was the connection.
There we go.
Wow.
Thanks, David.
Thank you very much. That's very cool. So, since we were so perfect and made no mistakes.
Except for the ones that we did on purpose.
Right.
To not displease God.
Intentional.
Yes.
What do we have left to cover? Like, we've basically covered it all, I think.
Yeah, we've gone over everything I wanted to talk about.
Awesome.
But wanted to say thanks to Kind Brothers music for
Yes.
the amazing theme for this series.
As always.
The Immortal Soul. And the other thing is that we're changing something about the way we're approaching the art.
Ooh.
So every other series we had one piece of just like really grand fancy series art.
Yeah.
And we're now going to switch over to doing trading cards.
Oh, okay.
So each series will have 2 to 5 trading cards, and we'll print them at the end of the year, and you can get them if you want.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that. Patrons, let us know what you think about that, because we're just, again, trying a new thing.
Yep.
So hope you like it.
Yeah.
And you can also go, like, we mentioned the Kiner music. You can go also watch the video of, like, the full track now. That should also be up at the same time as this. And I always recommend doing that, because just you only get to hear, like, a little 20-second chunk at most at the end of these episodes. But they often write, like, a full thing that's got, like, a whole just dynamic flow to it. It's very good. So, yeah, definitely go check that out.
And then after that, just next series is going to be on Genghis Khan starting February 10.
Mongols.
Yay!
It's going to be a lot of fun. But thank you very much for watching. It's good to meet you in person if I haven't before now. And yeah, I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.